that we've been seeing is that Oaken Summons is proving a lot of worth in the Jade Druid package. You know, how much do you really need Jade Spirit if you can make up that advantage in other ways? You think about some of your matchups. Against Priest, you're trying to win via the armor count. Against the aggro decks, you're trying to win simply by stopping their push. Jade Spirit doesn't really do those things, and the Oaken Summons provides you 2 waves of defense oftentimes. The fact that the Jade Druids have come prepared with that specific package, I think, has been a big benefit to them this weekend.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to start off with the matchup right away. It's going to be Aggro Druid versus Jade Druid to start things off. And Tom's got one key card in that opening hand that has Aggro Druids all across the world sweating. And that's Spreading Plague.
Oh, I thought it was the Arcane Tyrant.
Yeah, Arcane Tyrant 2.
That is definitely somewhat of a problem more for SamuelTsAo's deck, I'd say, than it would be for some of the other aggro druids that we've seen. SamuelTsAo's tops out with Living Mana, Cobalt Scalebane, and Corridor Creeper. Top out with Corridor Creeper.
Yeah. Only one Scalebane as well.
No Bittertide Hydras.
That's right.
And that's been a big performer, I think, versus Jade Druid throughout the weekend. It's just such a large threat that it constantly has pressure on the Jade Druid player to mount a defense, then also be able to kill it afterwards. Now, while we've seen that happen, it's quite unusual that's the case. But he also has one of the more important starts here with opening an Enchanted Raven and the buff with the card draw right afterwards. That's a lot of pressure on Tom early.
That's right. But we've seen time and time again these aggro druids having blistering starts. But if they can't make a couple of big threats that they just keep buffing up, and they are forced to go wide on the board at some point, Spreading Plague has been a massive punish for these types of strategies throughout the entire weekend here at the World Championship. And
Tom Nolan over his turn.
Yeah.
It feels like something's up here. Like, you can tell he's already working on sequencing out these turns. In case SamuelTsAo has one of those blistering starts, how does he want to react if that's the case? That's a lot of planning that goes into a hand like this when you have Spreading Plague. You have a couple of removal spells, and you have a Jade Behemoth. You need to figure out at what points do those inflections really hit, and you have to take advantage of them. That time window is going to close because SamTsao has much pressure as well. So Tom, he's got to get going about as quickly as possible here.
Yeah, but does have Jade Blossom. That's going to be a little bit of ramp, but we're still a few turns away from Spreading Plague. And SamuelTsao actually picks up Sousy Captain. So unless Patches is the very next draw, he's going to have a pretty powerful turn.
And this is one of the panouts I think that actually really benefits Tom, and one of the reasons why I think SamuelTsAo might not find the easiest win in this matchup is that even though he's got this much pressure, his top end right now is Living Mana. So into a card like Spreading Plague, that card is quite ineffective. Tom having Swipe and having Wrath looks like he is going to get through this early push, and it's a matter of how Sam can attack afterwards. So this is quite a concerning situation if you're SamuelTsAo.
Also, sort of the order of things, Galactic Crawler has been a Tekken aggro druid because players were expecting a lot of aggressive mirrors. Tempo Rogue was a deck that almost everybody brought to the tournament, and almost everybody expected everybody else to bring to the tournament. That, coupled with aggro druid being a popular choice, made Galactic Crawler a good inclusion for aggro druid. Also coupled with the fact that it's got the B synergy with Mark of Yasharaj, that it's just an early curve minion that synergizes a lot with the deck. But if you play your Pirates before you get the Galactic Crawler and your opponent's not playing any Pirates in their deck, you can get into these awkward situations where you can't play your Galactic Crawler because your Pirates are on your board.
Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why you see SamTsao trade with the Enchanted Raven rather than that Patches instead. Swipe would have just been an abysmal turn for him if he chose to trade with Patches, keep a 2-1 around and then the 4-4 around. Those little things matter a lot, and he's also expecting Oaken Summons quite often. Now, Tom drew that fresh off the top, but now suddenly Savage Roar is prepared to fight through this and continue pushing that little bit of damage.
Yeah, and Savage Roar, we've talked about it a couple times over the past couple matchups that we've cast, but getting the value early with Savage Roar can oftentimes be a good boon for the aggro druid player because they may not have an opportunity to get good value out of it later on.
Yeah.
Maybe it can help you get over Spreading Plague, but a lot of times Spreading Plague comes after Living Mana and you don't have an opportunity to even cast it because you don't have the mana for it.
Right.
The turn post Living Mana. So he didn't really have any other options here. But even if he did, Savage Roar would be an enticing option.
And excuse my trade of the 4-3. He obviously will be using his health total in that spot. His life total is largely irrelevant for the large portion of this game. By the time Tom starts delivering damage, it's likely he's locked in the game at that spot anyway. But this turn from Tom is really going to be an important one here. It really boils down to how much he removes from board, and then if SamuelTsao has a big follow-up. The fact that he's missing, again, Bitter Tide Hydra is such an important measure. Almost any way you slice this, Tom lands a good Spreading Plague.
Now, I want to talk a minute about SamuelTsao's next turn. He's got double Living Mana in hand, but that will be going right into turn 6 for Tom. He saw a card kept on the mulligan. That card has not been played yet.
What choices?
Do you ever just not Living Mana?
Well, the problem then is that what happens for Tom's range that SamuelTsao loses to in that spot, and those are really big questions. Maybe SamuelTsao looks at it and goes, if his only defense is Spreading Plague, maybe I can get him to absorb just a little bit, and then Living Mana afterwards to push.
Yeah.
So that is likely something that he's going to think about and is very dependent on his draw. But if he doesn't play Living Mana, then the Jade Behemoths can start punishing Sam as well.
So that's sort of the point of, sometimes you just have to take the risk and hope they don't have it when you're playing aggressive decks, and that's a good lesson. When you are, even online playing aggressive decks, sometimes the right play to make is just to make your strongest play each turn and force your opponent to have the answers.
Now, Cobalt Scalebane,
that changes things.
That will change Sam's play. That is the minion in his deck that's designed to fight against Spreading Plague in an efficient manner, and you can see his posture change right when he draws that card. Like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to have to take a huge risk, and now I don't.
Yeah, it's also a card that's been good for inclusions against Highlander Priest because it doesn't get killed by Dragonfire Potion because of that Dragon Tag. And
I think this is an easy trade here for SamuelTsao. Not necessarily easy. I think it is quite a painful trade to have to make, but you would much rather keep as much health in your Scalebane as possible than set yourself up. And that is quite a poor result, I think, overall, because now Tom has the option for swiping and clearing off the Scalebane, but I don't really know if he has the life to afford that right now. Or maybe he does. That was a pretty quick decision from Tom.
Well, he might have a good read on what those cards are in the far left.
And that could be part of the case, too. What would SamuelTsao have not played by this point? That could still be there. Yeah, I'm thinking like Mark of the Lotus, maybe Power of the Wild. There's no opportunities to use those two particular cards. SamuelTsao, once again, faced with the decision how to load up. At this stage, Jade Behemoth, Malfurion, those start becoming quite scary cards. But since he's stuck to his guns on the Cobalt Scalebane, he might just follow up with the Captain here as well. The thing that I'm fearing is he still doesn't really have a strong way to figure out whether or not Tom has Spreading Plague or not. The Cobalt Scalebane was his decided play. That's when he built his deck. He decided to do that on turn 5.
If he just plays South Sea Captain, Tom wouldn't pull the trigger on Spreading Plague in almost any scenario. So it's not a check for it.
Right.
And he doesn't have a way to sequence that Galactic Crawler.
And that's exactly what he's thinking here.
Comes to the conclusion that he just got to hope he doesn't have it. He can't make a weak play again.
Oh, wow.
Force Tom to do a
second swipe as well. Yeah. And that's a big deal if SamuelTsao doesn't draw a buff in this spot. That means his entire board can be here.
Yeah, because most of the time SamuelTsao is going to attack in with these Living Mana tokens and put him at 1 health and just make it easy.
It's like this animation is just like taunting him every single time too. It's like one by one. That's a pretty darn good draw though. Now the fact that SamuelTsao has the second Living Mana and Power of the Wild to go with it, suddenly that changes a lot of this game dynamic as well. It's not as easy as Tom just sitting behind the board and setting this up. The thing about it is it's hard for Sam to trade off the board in a really efficient manner. So if this goes at a stalemate, what ends up happening is Tom just chips away at Sam's total until he gets to a dangerous spot.
Yeah, Sam needs multiple turns to be able to set up Living Mana into a buff.
Yeah.
Like Power of the Wild, because next turn he's not doing anything.
That's going to give Tom a lot of time to put something together.
Yeah.
Now, he is only at 10, so that is quite a dangerous life total. So if I'm in Tom's spot here, it looks to me like you trade off a portion of the board and maybe go with Jade Behemoth to start accelerating that clock on SamuelTsao. His hand isn't super secure, so it makes a lot of sense to maybe sacrifice these Scarabs and start pressuring Sam back.
Yeah, that's the big decision point for Tom. This looks like the juiciest swipe of his life, but is it really? Is it better to actually build up a minion, start that Jade counter going, get an expensive card like Jade Behemoth out of your hand?
Is it even better to
clean up
start
the board,
chipping away his life total now and just force Sam to play Power of the Wild maybe, or Mark the Lotus on a board that's already been partially weakened?
That's kind of a risk, because at this point he's had 2 draws since the last time he would have played a buff.
I like this play from Tom, yeah.
Yeah.
Because the thing about it is, now if he uses Power of the Wild, he's still stunting SamuelTsau's development because all of his mana is tied up in those living mana tokens. So if Sam uses Power of the Wild here and starts running back over these Scarabs, then Tom gets to use Swipe as a tempo play to really deliver that clock back to SamuelTsao. I think this is a brilliant move from Tom.
I think a lot of players swipe in that scenario.
I would have untapped and swiped and said go in about 2.5 seconds. I probably would have lost.
Because we look at the scenario, what it would have been like if he did swipe. He would have had no development besides maybe a Jade Idol. SamuelTsao would have played a fresh living mana with more tokens, and then potentially followed that up with Power of the Wild, and the board wouldn't have been as strong as it was now, and Tom would be down a swipe, so he wouldn't have that to clean up the board afterwards.
And the thing about it is, from Sam's perspective, it really looks like Tom doesn't have that second swipe. That is a check for swipe in a lot of scenarios, and so the fact that Tom has made this brilliant move, it means that Sam is going to keep trading into these tokens, weakening up the board a little bit further, and give Tom that opening to press back.
So Tom might be doing the math here of swipe a minion versus swipe the face.
Yeah.
If he swipes face, he pushes 12 damage. If he goes all face with that, he develops Arcane Tower.
Boy.
Yeah.
Well, Tom's all in, and I think this is a very winning scenario for him. There is no way really for SamuelTsao to push back through this. And that's 10 represented on board with nothing that affects the board state in Sam's hand.
That's basically a checkmate scenario.
Or in his deck. Except for that. That is the only card that can provide any defensive measure.
But even then, any type of armor gain or damage draw at that stage would be able to allow him to push through, because SamuelTsao would have to Druid the Swarm for taunt, and he would also have to hero power. They're bringing up to 11 with 5 health worth of taunts on the board. Tom just straight up has 12. So he would need an armor upgrade plus a hero power that would allow him to push through with the Jasper Spellstone.
Tom's got a lot of draws in that deck in the game.
Ultimate Infestation would allow him to push through because he'll be on 10 mana next turn. So we're looking at Branching Paths, we're looking at Oaken Summons, we're looking at second Lesser Jasper Spellstone, we're looking at Ultimate Infestation. All these cards just end the game next turn.
There's
And
also a
even
lot of
after
cards that like effectively end the game as well, like giant defensive measures.
Yeah.
In the same vein, pretty much do the job. You know, Oaken Summons upgrades the Spellstone to 4. There's so much that SamuelTsao has to have go right at the stage. But that is quite an awkward draw.
Yeah, now if he draws into Oaken Summons, it's not enough. Branching Paths would still be enough.
No, Oaken Summons would still be enough.
He would Lesser Jasper Spellstone attack it.
use
Yeah,
the
you're
one
right.
yeah.
Because of the, I believe
He doesn't get it. In fact, he
Wow.
doesn't really draw anything of much value here. And now Tom's got to worry about offensive pressure from SamuelTsao. And that's what I wanted to talk about before Tom had cast that Nourish, is what happens if he fails the draw?
You mean, would it better be have just played Jade Behemoth and played it safe that turn?
I'm not sure. I don't really know. I mean, he does get to break through here, so if he has enough to fend off against, say, Savage Roar and Mark of the Lotus here, the Ultimate Infestation will end the game, but Tom has to now do a bunch of math on where does he lose?
He's got to clear off these tokens because of the threat of Savage Roar. He can no longer go with that aggressive game plan. SamuelTsao would have plenty of mana in order to do that.
I think that's finally locked it up. SamuelTsao has no offensive pressure left.
Yeah, even a Savage Roar draw would have not allowed him to push through, and that means Tom takes game number 1 in this quarterfinal